Greetings. Thank you for watching today. I'm Tom Atkinson. I'm with the Bladen Church of Christ in Elizabethtown, North Carolina. I want to thank you for joining us today. If you have any comments or questions that you would like to ask, feel free to post those in the box below, or you can email me at, and this is all one word, lowercase letters, thefocusofourfaith at gmail.com. Thefocusofourfaith at gmail.com. Any questions, comments, criticisms, whatever you'd like to offer, I'd love to hear from you. And if you have not looked at the first 3 videos, I would encourage you to do that. I'm going to be concluding that series with at least one more video, and then we'll move on to other things. But I would encourage you to watch those. It'll give you an idea of how I approach things. And like the title suggests, it's an introduction. And in that case, or in this case, an introduction to studying and learning about the words of Scripture and the context and the people that you're reading about and so on and so forth. Well, read those or listen to those or watch those. I'm all mixed up today. And if you see something that you think is beneficial, you hear something that you think is beneficial, subscribe to our channel and share it with others. We'd like to have you here on a regular basis. Now, I've been asked a question to address, and I think it's an excellent question. I've been asked would I address the issue of what happens after we die. And that's a really, really good question. Of all the questions I could think of to ask, that may very well be the one that's asked by 100% of everybody. What happens when we die? And in answering that, I would like to make a couple of suggestions. One thing we have to keep in mind when we answer a question like that is a passage like Deuteronomy 29:29. The secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the things revealed belong to us and to our children to teach them and to teach future generations and so forth. But the idea is that God does not tell us everything about everything. He reveals to us in His Word what we need to know. And a lot of people would be surprised to find out the Old Testament, for example, says very little about the afterlife. There are hints of it here and there, and words that we could study that give us some idea. But compared to the New Testament, the Old Testament says very little. The New Testament says more. Surprisingly, though, it is very little compared to what we might think it should be. And there are various words that are used to try to help us understand the process of what happens when we leave this world and go into the next. But getting back to 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and the illustration I wanted to use, Paul says he witnessed and saw things which cannot be expressed. And that brings me back to the illustration that Dr. Kaku has used to illustrate some points. Imagine, if you will, that you could go down into the ocean, take a fish, any kind of fish, and let's just assume that we can talk to this fish and reason with him and so forth. Well, let's bring him up here to the surface. Let's put him in a car. Let's drive around town. Let's show him all the places that we go to eat and for relaxation and so forth. And show him, even take him to a movie. Whatever your imagination tells you, that's what you do with your fish that day when you bring him up and show him this world. And then you take him back and you send him back to the ocean. And how do you think if such a scenario were possible, how do you think that fish would describe what he witnessed up here on the surface? I don't know. It'd be near nigh impossible to him to describe in language that his fish friends could understand. And that's what we're looking at when we're talking about what happens when we die. You see, we live in a dimension of time and space. In Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1, when Moses says that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, at that moment is when everything that we take for granted in this world came into being. It happened instantly when God brought it into being, but he brought time and space into being. See, God dwells outside of time and space. He is called the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And imagine, if you will, this way, that this is history, this box. Let's say that box right there is history. And inside this box contains everything about humanity that we'd ever want to know or could know. And let's assume that this is the world we live in, and God, where does God live? He lives out here on the outside. He's not inside the box in this illustration. He's on the outside. And if you're living in a realm of existence that has no time, no space, no yesterday, today, or tomorrow, everything simply is. That's what eternity is, the absence of space and time. There is no beginning or ending. It just simply is existence. And that's why this question of what happens when we die can be very difficult to answer, because we do not fully comprehend what it may be like to cross into a realm of existence that's unlike anything we can ever imagine. We cannot even discuss this question without presupposing the limitations and restrictions of time and space. And so ultimately, I do not know exactly what it may be like to pass on to the other side. I will find out one day, because one day it'll be my name in the obituaries. But getting back to this illustration that Paul gave, he says he goes there and he hears things that cannot be told, which man may not utter, which are inexpressible, and he cannot convey it to others. Now, this is one verse in Scripture. There are others, but one verse in particular that makes me look leery at near-death experience. I have to be skeptical to a degree about it, because Paul said he went through something like that, and he can't describe it. It's inexpressible. And that's what I think we're dealing with here. So having said that, in our next video, we will start talking about the language of Scripture that pertains to the afterlife. What all does that entail? And what is the reason why the New Testament uses various terms to describe the afterlife? And we will work through this as best we can. I'm trying to work through this material in a way that I can keep these videos to 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe a half hour at max, and still do a complete job as complete as possible in this context of answering these questions. So I'm glad you asked it. Tune in to the next video and we'll elaborate on it more. But remember, this is one of those subjects where we can't be completely 100% sure of how to understand some of these things, because, as Paul said, it involves a realm of existence in which we will see things that we can't express. And if we're Christians, that's a wonderful hope. A wonderful hope. Thank you again for watching. Keep watching this channel. Subscribe to the channel, and you'll be alerted whenever I post a new video. And in the meantime, I hope you're having a very blessed day. And thank you for choosing to watch. See you next time.